this is Andrew from Rip to Shreds, and you are listening to the FANTASM Podcast.
Phantasm.
Maximum terror.
Oh! That's your target audience, baby!
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.
Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal! Sell the metal!
Phantasm.
Hey, this is Dr. Vincent West, medical doctor with the Phantasm Podcast. Got a great guest today. We got Andrew from Rip to Shreds. We're going to be talking about their new album. It comes out October 14th on Relapse. These guys are killer death metal stuff. As you all know, I love death metal stuff. Andrew, how you doing?
I am pretty good. Really busy, but we got the new album coming out. I have a bunch of other side projects. I got another album coming out like November, and then I run a small record label called Nameless Grave, and then we got a whole bunch of records coming out. So it's just real busy.
Yeah, man. Sounds like you're super busy. So let's talk about Jubian. Let's talk about this album. Talk real quick, if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about the writing process for this record.
So the writing for this record, basically Rip to Shreds started off as like a one-man band.
Okay.
And then I brought in the other guys to play live around the end of 2019.
Okay.
And then, I liked playing with them, so I was like, I'll just bring them in, we'll just make it like a real, quote-unquote, real band, But I'm still, like, writing the, I write the riffs, I arrange them, and they come up with some, scratch drum machine tracks, and then I present that to the rest of the band.
Okay.
And then they kind of take it, and, Brian, our drummer, he has his own style, and, because he's more from, like, hardcore, and when he was growing up, he was, like, super into brutal death metal.
Okay.
So his perspective on writing drums is going to be different from mine.
Sure, absolutely.
Course, when I only need to think about writing guitar parts, that frees up Ryan, my bassist. He doesn't need to only follow the guitar riff. If I'm doing everything myself, then in my head, it's a little simpler for me to, just follow the guitar riff, unless I have like some flash of insight. Oh, I could totally do something different with the bass here.
Sure.
But handing off that entire thing to Ryan, lets him explore whatever he wants, because he's only focused on writing a cool bass part to go along with the rest of the song. He doesn't need to, think of the entire song at the same time and think of all the drums and the vocals and the lyrics and how everything's got to fit together. He only needs to think about the bass, which
right.
I feel lets the bass on this album be a little bit more creative.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, I think I started writing last May.
Okay.
I think around May, and then it took me about 2 months or so to, write out and record like basic demos of all the songs, and then I brought in Ryan and Brian, and we would, listen to them. If they were, they would help me arrange it. Like if maybe they would point out, this section goes too long, maybe this section doesn't fit, let's take it out and try something else there.
Sure.
And so that's basically how it went. I come up with basic skeletons of all the songs, and then we get together and then see where we can improve on them, make them better.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about track one of this record. Tell me about Violent Compulsion for Conquest.
I think this one's actually like the first song that I wrote for the record.
Okay.
I think I came up with like the drums go, duh, at the start of this, well, kind of close to the start of the song after the first, slow riff.
Sure.
And the drums are kind of doing stabs, and then it goes into a blast beat. I think that was like the first part I came up with on the record, because I wanted it to be like a bolt thrower kind of song.
Yeah.
And then, but once I started like adding in new riffs and adding in new parts, it went pretty far away from like bolt thrower,
Right.
Turned into kind of like an obliteration or autopsy kind of song.
Sure.
So it's kind of funny how when you initially start writing a song, you have an idea of what you want it to be, but once you actually start working on it, it kind of just gets away from you, and then you kind of have to let the song develop naturally.
Sure, of course. Well, it's a hell of a way to kick the record off, I think. And let's see, track 2, Split Apart by Five Chariots.
Yeah, that one. That one was one of the ones where I came up with the concept of the lyrics first. I don't always do that. A lot of the songs start off with kind of a feeling, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to try and write a fast song, or I'm going to try and write a slow song, or I'm going to try and write a song with like a bunch of D beats or something like that. But some songs, I have a kind of concept in my head related to the lyrics, and then I want to represent that concept in some way. So like on the first record, that would be like Yellow River. I came up with the idea of I came up with the subject matter for that first. I thought of there's that huge Yellow River incident in like the Chinese Civil War,
right?
This giant dam was blown up, and it devastated the entire country and caused like famines, and millions of people died.
Right.
And then as I was thinking of that, I thought, okay, that would be really cool to represent with like a chaotic kind of Slayer style solo, and a giant dive bomb leading into that.
Right.
So similarly for Split Apart by Five Chariots, I thought of okay, I want a really cool, catchy chorus. What's something that would be good for that? And I came up with the idea of just like screaming the words "giant cock" over and over again.
Right.
So
hey, it's
that's kind of where that entire song is built around.
It's a great track, man. This record's really, really cool. Let's see, track 3, In Solitude, and then Sun, Moon, Holy Cult, Part 3.
Yeah. So this one is like, I'm a big Dream Theater fan.
Dude,
I love it.
Love them.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. A huge fan. Well, the Portnoy era stuff. It's taken me forever to get into the Mangini stuff.
Exactly.
And everybody gives me shit about it, but,
I can't listen to the Mangini stuff. It's just not the same. This Portnoy has like, kind of like that rock and roll attitude, and the way that his energy drives the songwriting.
Sure.
Just like a totally different vibe from the way Mangini influences the band.
Absolutely.
It's just not the same.
I like the first, when they had Kevin Moore with them too on keyboards. I prefer the first 2 records. I think after that they got a little experimental. I still like it, but the Black Cloud Silver Lining, I guess, was really the last record that I was really into. I think that's the last one Mike was on, but it's I don't know. I listened to like their last record, and I think it's pretty cool, but it also just kind of sounds like 90s era Rush, which I don't like either. It's like they just lost their, it's like they're just putting out a record to put out a record, so. But anyway, I didn't mean to get attention. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but basically, I like how they have those, giant epics, and how they have, continuity between. They bring back certain themes.
Yeah.
Across different albums.
Yep.
And then so I wanted to do kind of the same thing with this song. So the first part 1 was on an EP that we put out in 2019.
Nice.
And that one was also like a 10-minute plus song.
I love it.
We had a part 2 on the last full length, and then now this is part 3. And so I definitely wanted this to start off very differently from all the other Sun Moon Holy Cult songs. So that's why this one, it starts off super fast. You start blasting right away.
Right.
And then I think partway through the song, I bring back like the big main theme from the very first part, and I kind of wanted to express. Lyrically, the song is like based on this martial arts novel by this guy called Jin Yong, and that dude is like, he's probably like one of the most important martial arts novelists ever.
Really?
There's like 2 main guys, Jin Yong and Liu, and they were popular like. I mean, they started becoming popular like in the 50s and the 60s, and like basically all modern martial arts, TV, books, film, whatever, is built on the foundations that they laid down. But yeah. So it's supposed to be kind of like melancholy and complicated, and then when everything earlier in the song is like kind of building up to that big melodic resolution at the very end.
Do you like writing long songs? Because I love that y'all have these really long epic songs. I mean, I know we talk about the Dream Theater, but is it something you enjoy composing?
I take it as a challenge, because I think for death metal, writing long songs usually is a recipe for disaster. Especially because I find straightforward death metal to be limited in the types of moods that you can express. Well, when you take something like Dream Theater, people's expectations of something like prog rock or prog metal
Sure.
aren't as restrictive. You're allowed to break a ragtime part, or you're allowed to, break out into a soft acoustic, whatever, But when you play straightforward death metal like we do, I think there's a very narrow range of quote-unquote acceptable expression and have it still sound like death metal. Otherwise you end up with something like Opeth.
Sure.
I know people like Opeth, but I personally, I don't like either their death metal period or their new prog rock stuff.
100% agree with you.
The way that they approach writing long songs it doesn't speak to me.
It doesn't me either.
So when I'm writing a super long song like this, that's death metal and that's fast, because of course you have Death Doom, you have Death Doom bands, they play very slow.
Sure.
And so obviously they end up with like 20-minute long songs.
Right.
But that's just because the whole thing is super slow. And then for this, there's some slow parts, but it's mostly fast. And so for me, the challenge really is how do I come up with a long song that is mostly fast, but I can still keep it interesting without repeating myself or making it get monotonous. If you think of like a Suffocation song,
right?
They have a million riffs.
Absolutely.
You want to keep it within like 3 or 4 minutes because it's too much to like really digest. So I don't know if I would call it I enjoy writing long songs, but I definitely appreciate the challenge in trying to come up with a long song that a long death metal song that kind of I think is good.
I think it's very unique, and to touch on the Opeth thing, they were I could never get into it. Everybody's listen to this Blackwater Park or listen to this. Like I just don't like it. I think they're great musicians that Michael's had in that band, but I don't even like Bloodbath. I don't like anything that guy's done. I'm just not a fan. Like, it was so funny because my co-host was like, "Oh, You don't like Bloodbath? It's like, no, they're a cover of like American death metal. Like I don't want to listen to that. I'm not a big. The only European death metal band, I don't know what your take is on European death metal. The only one that I like is Dismember. That's it. I just can't.
I personally, I don't like Bloodbath either.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
They have like a whole bunch of, like, I haven't listened to all their albums, only a couple. So the ones that I heard, some of them sounded like kind of like a ripoff of like Morbid Angel,
exactly,
or maybe some parts that sounded sort of like Cannibal.
Yeah,
and it was kind of like, this isn't very interesting. I mean, I love European death metal. I think there's so many great bands. Dismember is obviously one of them. I love Bolt Thrower. I love Entombed.
See, Bolt Thrower, I guess I always forget. I know they're British, See, in Entombed, the interesting thing on Entombed, Left Hand Path is the only thing I like. And I don't even think it's that good. Like, to me, I would much rather listen to Deicide's Legion or Deicide's debut album or, the first 4 Cannibal records. See, Cannibal's dead to me without Barnes. I'm older. I'm an older dude. Like, I don't like the stuff they do with George. I just don't. And the stuff they're doing now sounds like fucking deathcore, and I don't like any of it. Now, the last record was cool because Rutan's doing some stuff on it, and I love him. But I'm real picky about my death metal. And, Suffo I love. Immolation I love. Right. But I don't know, the European stuff, Dismember was the only one, and I saw them, in their heyday, and I loved them. I thought and I still do. I think they're a great band, but for some reason, like Vomitory and all that stuff, I could never get into that stuff. And Entombed, I don't know.
To me, the biggest thing there is, if you look at a band like Entombed,
sure,
and directly compare them to Dismember, I think Dismember takes more from kind of like classic metal, like Iron Maiden or something.
Yeah.
And Entombed is much more obviously punky.
It is. Yeah.
If you listen to like Discharge or like the Swedish hardcore bands like Anti-Cymex or Mob 47,
sure,
here there's a lot of that in Entombed. So
I don't know, the whole death and roll thing. I didn't like the death and roll shit. I don't like that. I don't know. I just don't. You know what I mean? The whole.
I personally love Wolverine Blues.
Do you?
And I love Swan Song.
I mean, I'll tell you something right now, and this is heresy to people. I don't like Carcass. I never have. I just don't like them. I'm not a fan of their music. I feel like they're more grindcore than they are death metal, and I just never, like symphonies and all that. I mean, I think they're good musicians. I think Bill's a great guitar player, but it's just not my. I was never into that stuff. If I'm going to listen to grindcore, I'm going to listen to Napalm Death. I just don't.
Right.
And that was really never my thing either. But the Entombed thing, I've never understood. I really don't. And nothing against you or anybody else that likes them. I could never get into it. Bolter's a great band. But after Left Hand Path, like Clandestine, I don't like that record. Wolverine Blues I wanted to like because I'm a huge comic book geek, but I couldn't get into it. But the production and the rawness of it, I can see where it's appealing to people, but I don't know, man. It's weird. I didn't mean to get on like a tangent about that, but it's
for sure.
But I love your guitar playing. You're a very talented guitarist.
Are you like a big hardcore punk fan at all, or not really?
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
I love the Dead Kennedys. I love the Misfits. I love the Subhumans. That's all stuff I grew up with. I like the Ramones. But like as far as like hardcore, I can't really say
like 80s hardcore.
I mean, I like Sick of It All, if that counts. I liked Fugazi. That's all stuff I listened to. A band called obviously I was really big into the crossover stuff. Like I love the second Cro-Mags album. Like I'm not a fan of the first. Right. I'm not a fan of the first album. I love like Best Wishes. When DRI went, like with Four of a Kind, like I love that stuff, the thrashy, punkish stuff. I like all that stuff. So that was all stuff I grew up and went and watched. I'm trying to think. Fear, I love the band Fear. So that's the punk stuff I was into. I don't know if that's what you were wanting to know, but that was what I grew up.
Yeah, I just feel like Entombed has. I feel like Entombed appeals more to punk sensibilities. and that's also why you kind of see like a lot of modern hardcore bands that are kind of inspired by Entombed. I mean, that's how
that's genius, dude. No one has ever said that. I actually think that's incredibly insightful because I don't know what it is. It just never. It was never out after Left Hand Path, and I'll give that record all the props in the world. But it's kind of like Obituary. I was never an Obituary guy. I never liked Grave. They were just too slow. I just don't.
Oh, yeah. Obituary.
I mean, look, Cause of Death.
I don't like them at the same time.
I like Cause of Death. Slowly We Rot. I never liked. I was more of like my favorite death metal band probably ever was Malevolent Creation.
So the fast kind of blasting style.
Yeah, and then Suffo. Like these people, like Effigy to me is a masterpiece. Like I love the production on that album. I love all the songs on it. I know a lot of people like Pierced better, but I'm an Effigy guy. The first Crisian album, I think, is genius. I love the first Crisian album. It's just 5 million miles an hour, and it's nasty, and I love it. That was all the stuff I was into. Like early Sepultura. I was getting bored with thrash. Like I literally watched all this stuff come into its own, and I was living in Florida, and I was like, oh, what's this? And that's my thing with like the Barnes era Cannibal. It's nothing against the George era stuff. It's just because some of that stuff's cool. Like my favorite George era album is probably Gallery of Suicide, but the other stuff, like I just can't get into it. Like the Barnes stuff, I love. I love his lyrics.
I mean, the Barnes stuff is classic for a reason.
I mean, I know some of those cats, and I'm a fan, but I love the first 4 records. That's just, and it's like with Deicide. Anything after Once Upon the Cross, I'm kind of like, I just don't, Yeah,
I mean, I think Deicide also admitted they kind of stopped trying after that one because they were like, they were sick of their record contract with like Roadrunner.
Sure.
And then so like, we're just gonna finish out this contract. We don't care.
Right.
And that because their post Roadrunner stuff is good at worst.
No, it is. Oh, I'm not saying it's just when I'm grabbing an album to listen to when I'm drinking, I'm grabbing something old, Right. And it's same with Malevolent. Like I know a lot of people like Retribution. For me, it's the first album. 10 Commandments is my favorite thing they ever did. I love that record. And it's Suffo, it's Effigy. And there's other stuff. I mean, I love Gorgasm. I think that band's great. I think those dudes put out really cool shit for like brutal death metal stuff. But a lot of and Pestilence was another band where like I still like them even when they got real proggy and kind of like technical with like Spheres. But and their new stuff's cool too. Like I still like them. But it's weird how some of the stuff just kind of. And Death was a band that I loved, obviously, like so many people, and I saw them a bunch. And the only Death record I don't like is Human, and everybody loves that record but me. That was
really that one I think is their best.
See,
after Human,
mine's a weird
kind
one.
Of not as good.
See, Individual's mine, man. Individual Thought Patterns, I think he is so pissed off on that album. I love that record, and that and Spiritual Healing. Those are the two. Those tours were great for me, and Craig LaCicero was playing instead of Andy LaRocque for the Individual tour, and I was just a huge fan of that record. But no, they lost me on Human. Now, musically, obviously, it's brilliant, but I don't know. I'm not into like super technical death metal stuff. Was never into that kind of stuff. It's just not my thing. But I think now Symbolic, I love. Symbolic's great. And the last album, everybody loves the last record. I did not like the last Death album. I know that's so blasphemous to say that, but I just was not a fan of that album. I don't like his vocals on it.
It's clearly like a Controlled Denied album.
Yeah, I just can't get into it.
It's just like, no, we want to release it as Death. No singing, just do your screaming on it. And I think it's like really obvious that the stuff on the last album wasn't written to be Death songs.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I don't mean it's nothing against him. I think he's a brilliant guitarist and songwriter and human being, but I could never get into that. I could never get into the Controlled Denied stuff. So Symbolic was like the swan song for me, But Individual's great, man. I really like that record. I never hear people talk about it. I think it's nasty. I think there's some really good guitar playing on it and real melodic, and he's pissed off. Any interview I've ever read about the making of that album said that he was absolutely just livid when he went in and was writing that album. I don't know what he was mad about, but it's a very aggressive record. I always liked it. But let's get back to your record. I'm sorry, I've gone on a damn death metal. I love talking with you, by the way. We've got to do this again, so it's so much fun.
I mean, these kind of interviews, usually I'm like just regurgitating the same, like 5 talking points. So it's nice to talk about something.
Well, cool, man. Well, yeah, look, and you're a masterful guitarist, man. I mean, this record is fucking fabulous. Yeah, I'm new to the band, so this was my first experience. Really good stuff. I love that you're a Dream Theater fan too, and you're very knowledgeable on your stuff. It's very refreshing. I do a lot of interviews, and people are not very versed in the stuff that they're even doing, if you can believe that. And so thank you for that. But I didn't need to get off on a tangent about it. But any other tracks that you want to that kind of stand out that you want to discuss? I don't want to just bore you to death with doing the record, but we can. But
yeah. I think the second to last one, that one's kind of interesting for me because, I mean, mostly in this band, I stick to, so we play 7 strings.
Really?
So, yeah.
Nice, dude.
Standard B, E, A, D, G, E.
Nice.
So almost all of our songs are either based in B, or a couple of songs I have, I started off in E standard.
Okay.
And, the concept behind that is, I want to save the low string on that song for like a really impactful part on the record.
Nice.
So like on this record, I did that on Race Trader, where most of the song takes place in E until the very end, where suddenly I hit the super low string, and then to me that sounds like super heavy. Yeah. So for this record, Peregrination, that's the first time that for this band I tuned down to drop A.
Oh.
And it really changed the way that I kind of like approached songwriting. Because like, doing things with one finger, it's freeing.
Sure.
It's a lot easier than trying to move around power chords with your whole hand. And it let me come up with some like really stupid, not stupid in a bad way, but like really dumb, simple riffs that just have a lot of energy. And so for me, that's like one of my favorite songs to play live. I got to switch out guitars at the end of the set so I can play this one.
Oh wow! It's
like it's a lot of fun because it's kind of slow and tough, and then you can see everyone in the audience like they kind of get into it. I guess I feel like I wouldn't call it dancing, but when you play super fast, I love it. I love to play super fast. I love watching super fast bands, but it's a little more difficult for people to like headbang to super fast shit.
It is.
So when you slow it down a little bit, suddenly like everyone goes crazy.
I mean, it's this record, man. You're a fabulous guitarist. The song arrangements are great. The production on it, did you guys do it yourself or?
Yeah.
Well, it's nice.
Thanks, man.
I mean, it sounds really fucking good, and like I said, I very blown away by it, and just I guess the In Solitude track's the one that caught me. I was like, well, fuck yeah, man, this thing's almost like 11 minutes. This is great to go back to that one again, but I loved it. The Harmonious Impiety is a great track too.
Yeah, that one I just wanted to like write something super short, and that because I have a lot of I play in like 5 or 6 different like grindcore projects.
Oh, okay.
So it's always like a big part of what I do, and that one, Harmonious Impiety, is a little bit more. It's not exactly grindcore because I like to keep all my bands conceptually and musically pretty distinct.
Okay.
I know there are guys like Raga Johansson, he's in 100 bands.
Right.
All of his bands kind of sound, the exact same. That's something I consciously try to avoid. But when I started thinking about, grindcore in the context of this band, in Rip to Shreds, I'm usually reaching for like Repulsion or
such a good band.
Where there's like already a really big crossover between death metal and the more metal side of grindcore.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was drawing from in that song.
Well, this thing has got so many great tracks on it. And are you guys planning on doing some touring for this record?
When is this podcast supposed to come out?
I'm going to put it out right around the time the album drops.
Okay. So we are going to tour Europe next year.
Nice.
We might come to the East Coast sometime next year. It's not set in stone yet. We might, but we're still trying to
putting together a package. Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, man, I would love to see you play this shit live. I would lose my mind. It'd be really cool. Yeah, this record's great, man. Like I said, it's got it all. And I love the, and I don't really know how to say this, but I love that you have the Asian ethnic stuff throughout the band. Is this on everything? If I go back and listen to the EP and the other album, is that there as well?
Yeah.
I love it, man. That's so fucking cool.
When I think about a way to express, the themes and the visuals of the band, I mean, for me, that's something that's just underexplored in death, or not even just death metal, in metal in general.
Sure.
There's so many Asians in America, and there's so few, metal bands kind of about that experience or anything really remotely related. So when I was thinking, okay, what do I want to write about in this band? How do I want to present our visuals, our cover art, all that stuff? It just seemed natural to me because I barely see anyone else do it, and I want to do it in such a way that other Asian kids are going to look at and be like, "Oh, hey, cool! There's another band made of Asians out there just like me."
It's amazing. I love it. I really do. I think it's very unique. It's as unique to me. The biggest compliment I could give you was like the first time that I saw Nile. I was like, wow. Not that those cats are Egyptian, but do you know what I mean? Just having a theme and it really pulls you into the album. When I was listening to this album, I felt like I was visiting something. It was really, really cool. But yeah, man, this is a fucking great album. Kids, go buy Rip to Shreds Jubian. It comes out October 14th on Relapse Records. It's fucking fantastic. Go see these guys. Give them some money. This is good shit, man. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this today.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Phantasm.
And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it.
Phantasm.